She was stopped in broad daylight, without listening to words or titles, only seeing her shape and skin color. She was humiliated in front of passers-by, but she did not respond with a scream, only with silence, which had more power than any speech. While the world argued and made noise, she made only one call, and that was enough. Now everyone knows her name, but she never said a single unnecessary word. Don't forget to subscribe and like so you don't miss new stories. The town of River Pine was waking up slowly. The air was filled with the early heat, smelling of dust, gasoline, and something sticky from the blossoming trees. The morning sun was falling obliquely, drawing long shadows on the asphalt. There was a car parked on the side of the road near the roadway gas station. A dark blue Army SUV with base license plates. A woman in uniform got out. With a calm movement, she took off her cap, ran her hand along the edge of her forehead, and headed for the water machine. She was wearing a medical corps uniform with a name patch on her chest. Lieutenant Naomi Richards. Her back was straight, her gaze confident. The silence around her felt like a pause between events that had not yet begun. Naomi walked up to the machine, inserted a bill, and pressed the button. A plastic bottle fell into the slot. With a thud, she leaned over and picked up the water. And at that very moment, a patrol car drove slowly across the parking lot. Inside were two people, a blond sergeant with glasses angled on his forehead, and a young corporal with a predatory face. The car stopped. "Do you see?" said the elder, without taking his eyes off the window. "I see," the corporal replied. "It looks strange. It's too clearly standing, as if it's advertising. Who walks around a gas station dressed like that?" Naomi heard the door slam. The officers came out, their steps quick. The sun reflected off their badges. "Good morning, ma'am," said the elder, approaching. "May I ask for your documents?" Naomi turned around, holding the bottle with both hands. Her face was calm. "Of course. Did something happen?" "We received a call. Someone reported a suspicious person on the territory of the gas station. Matches your description." "My description?" She raised an eyebrow slightly. "I'm in uniform. I have my ID with me." "The ID can be forged, ma'am. Do you mind showing it?" She silently took out the ID and unfolded it. Photo, stamp, signature. He glanced at it, and nothing changed in his face. "You'll have to come with us," said the sergeant. "Excuse me? On what grounds?" "Until we confirm your identity. You don't look—" He paused. "Like someone who should be here." "I'm a medical officer. Forreston AFB. I'm packing up. I stopped to buy some water." "You can say whatever you like, ma'am," the second one interjected, "but according to our protocols, you must be taken to the station for clarification." "I am not refusing to cooperate, but you have not given me any reason why I should be detained. I ask that you allow me to contact my commanding officer, Colonel William Harris. You can call headquarters and—" "Put your hands on the hood," the sergeant interrupted. "Right now." "Are you serious? This is not up for discussion. Or will you resist?" Naomi took a slow step back. People began to gather around her. Two teenagers, a woman with a phone in her hand. Someone was already filming. Someone was whispering, "She's in uniform." "I obey," Naomi said, turning around. "But you will have to answer for this." "We're following the law," the corporal said. "Hands on the hood." She touched the hood with her palms. She felt hot metal. The handcuffs snapped shut. Someone gasped. "What's going on?" said the woman with the phone. "Can't you see who she is? She's wearing a uniform. It's the Army." "Put the phone away, ma'am," the corporal barked. "No, I film everything. It's madness." Naomi didn't move. Her face remained calm. Only her lips pressed together slightly. "Let me make a call," she said. "One. It's my right." "You'll do it at the station," the sergeant replied. It was cool in the police station. The walls were gray. The metal of the chair was cold. The handcuffs were removed, but the documents were not returned. Naomi sat with her hands folded in her lap, silent. Periodically, one of the officers entered the room. Their glances were fleeting. Wordless, voices could be heard in the corridor. Did we really arrest a military man? Not just a military man. A woman in uniform, with an ID. Who called? Some guy with a farm. Said she was just walking too slow. Seriously? Have you seen the video? Already all over the tape. The door opened. An officer entered. Papers in his hand, his face tense. "Lieutenant Richards?" "Yes." "You're being taken away. Army vehicle. Colonel Harris will be here in an hour. He's already on his way." "Fine." "Sorry, He hesitated. "I was just following orders." "Then you understand that this is your problem." She stood up, walked past him, silently. Not a word, not a gesture. The air outside was hotter. A military vehicle was parked at the side of the road. The door opened. The driver, a young private, stood at attention. "Lieutenant." "Thank you, soldier." She sat down. Behind her, the gas station, the concrete, the looks, the cameras. Everything that was remained there. Ahead, the road. Command. Conversation. And the truth that doesn't need to be shouted. Only to stay. Quietly. Confidently. Forever. The light in the police station was too bright, cold, like the light in an operating room where there was silent observation instead of help. The walls seemed sterile, not from cleanliness, but from indifference. The smell of cheap coffee, washed uniforms, and fatigue filled the air. Naomi sat in a metal chair in a windowless room. The table in front of her was empty. No paper, no water, only silence, in which she could hear the breathing of those watching her through the glass. The door opened. "Lieutenant Richards," Sergeant Felton said as he walked in, "we're still awaiting confirmation of your identity from command." "You already got it," Naomi replied calmly. "I heard the dispatcher contact the Army base. You got a response." He looked down and hesitated, as if he had forgotten the script for a second. "We have our own procedures. Until your status is officially entered into the system, you remain here." "I'm not a criminal." "We didn't say that. You handcuffed me at a gas station in front of passers-by, despite the fact that I did not resist, did not break the law, and was wearing a United States uniform. What exactly do you think that is, if not an assertion?" Felton looked away. His shoulders jerked as if he had spoken too loudly. He left without answering. Naomi was alone. She didn't look at the camera in the corner, but she knew she was being watched. It didn't make her angry. It just made her tired. She put her hands on the table, palms down, and closed her eyes. She wasn't praying. She was just remembering how she had once bandaged the leg of a soldier in an empty field, in the mud and rain, and he had whispered, "Thank you, Lieutenant," and no camera had captured her holding his hand to stop him from shaking in pain. The door opened again. This time a young policeman entered, nervous, with a file in his hands. Lieutenant, Colonel Harris is on his way. We've received his written confirmation. He'll be here in 30 minutes. Thank you. I would like to apologize." "For what exactly?" "For everything. I saw the video. The way you behaved. It was real. I'm sorry." An apology is not words, it's actions. I hope you learn from it. He nodded and walked away, barely touching the floor, like a shadow frightened by the light. Meanwhile, the hallway was getting louder. Through the glass, Naomi caught the echoes of voices. Someone was talking on the phone. Already on the news. Yes, in uniform. No, not a joke. Someone was running with papers, someone was whispering. The word army was heard too often. The word racial was whispered like a curse. She heard footsteps, heavy, confident. The door opened. He walked in. Colonel William Harris. Tall, graying at the temples, wearing a perfectly tailored uniform. His gaze was as straight as a line of soldiers. "Lieutenant Richards," he said. "Sir, I'm here. I'm calling command, raising the press, doing everything I can. You're not alone." "I know, sir." He sat down opposite. "I'm proud of how you behaved. Without emotion, without shouting. You saw everything. And it was right. Thank you, sir." But they didn't see everything. What exactly? That it's not about me, it's about those who will come after. An officer or a soldier is not armor. It's a reminder that you have no right to be afraid to be yourself. Even in handcuffs. Harris nodded. He stood up. He walked around the table. "We're leaving here, Lieutenant. You've earned more than just freedom. You've earned respect. And it's going to be harder not to give it away than to ignore it." People were already gathering in the parking lot at the station. Several reporters, passers-by with phones, cameras. Someone was shouting, "Is that her?" Someone. The soldier from the video? Someone just stood there silently. A military vehicle was waiting at the curb. The driver, a private, opened the back door. "Lieutenant?" Naomi walked up to the car, stopped, turned to the colonel. "Sir, may I say a few words?" "Speak." She looked up at the glass of the building. In one of the windows, she saw a figure. The young corporal, the one who had handcuffed her. "I won't sue. I'm not looking for revenge. I just want someone to remember this day. Not because of the video, but because of how easy it could have been to do otherwise." "They'll hear this," Harris said quietly. "I hope." As the car pulled away, Naomi looked out the window. The cameras were going dark. People were leaving. The sun was rising. She felt the warmth coming through the glass, resting on her shoulders. Not the warmth of approval. The warmth of everything being right inside. That she had done everything right. There was a phone lying nearby. On the screen were dozens of messages. From friends, from colleagues, from journalists. Naomi turned on silent mode. She looked ahead. Kept my back straight. As always. The room on the second floor of the Army Command building was nearly empty. Naomi stood by the window, leaning her shoulder against the wall. The treetops swayed outside the glass. The distant road was drowning in the midday haze, and the city beyond the base lived on as if nothing had happened. She held her phone in her hands, but she wasn't looking at the screen. She just held it. Everything inside was quiet, so quiet that even her heart seemed to beat more gently, so as not to disturb the fragile balance she had maintained since the steel click of handcuffs divided her life into before and after. The door opened. "Lieutenant Richards," said Harris's voice. "May I?" "Of course, sir." The colonel entered, sat on the edge of the table, and placed the tablet on his knees. "The city attorney called me this morning. He's already seen the video. It's on the news. It's on the big news, even in Washington. I didn't send it. I kept quiet. And they did the right thing. Others did not remain silent. The recording was distributed by those who were at the gas station. One woman, a teacher, She was nearby when it all started. It is her voice that is heard when they put you on the hood. She said, "This is a disgrace. Can't you see? This is a disgrace." Naomi looked away. I didn't want to be a hero, and I didn't want to be a victim. You became neither one nor the other. You remained yourself. He handed her the tablet. On the screen was a news feed. Headlines: Woman in military uniform detained without grounds. Army officer racially profiled in front of passers-by. Sergeant Richards's silence louder than any rally. "They're writing," she said quietly. "They don't know anything about me, but they're already writing. Because you showed what dignity looks like, not in speech, not in body, but in how you didn't scream when they wanted you to. Screaming wouldn't have changed anything. I would have become one of those people described as emotional, aggressive. I wanted to stay where I was, and you stayed, on your own." Meanwhile, off base, the story was gathering momentum. Reporters lined the fence. City Hall issued a statement announcing an internal investigation. Officers Felton and Collins were suspended. One of them, the younger one, tried to contact Naomi through a third party. "He told me to tell you he was sorry," Harris said, "that he was wrong, that it wasn't personal, that he was just doing what he was trained to do. If that's how he was taught, then someone needs to retrain him." "Do you want to file an official complaint?" "No. I want him to be taught by those who know what it feels like to be handcuffed, not by those who decide how quickly to put them on." "Then maybe he should sit opposite you." Naomi looked up. "I will think." The next day, there was a meeting at the base, a small, informal one. People gathered in the assembly hall, not for the sake of a report, for the sake of listening. Naomi didn't want to talk, but she came out anyway, in uniform, with a straight back. "I'm not here to demand anything," she began. "I'm not here to make accusations. I'm here so you know how it was, without redaction, without big words. I was stopped while I was on my way to follow orders. I was detained not because of my actions, but because of how I looked, despite my uniform, despite my ID, despite my voice. All of that was ignored. Only the body remained. And that was the reason." The hall was quiet. I didn't scream back, because I knew it wouldn't change them. It would change me. And I was already who I was supposed to be. And I didn't want to become someone else just because I wasn't seen. She fell silent. No one applauded. But everyone listened, just the way she wanted. Later in the evening, Harris came to see her again. In his hand was a letter. "This is an official apology from the city administration, signed by the mayor. I can mail it to you, or throw it away. Let it be, not to forgive, but to remember." "Another letter has arrived." He handed it over. On plain paper, his hand shaking with tension. "I didn't know humiliation could be so silent. I thought resistance was always noise, but now I understand that true strength is in the one who can remain silent and still remain superior. Forgive me, if possible. Jake Collins." Naomi read it. Then she folded the letter and put it in the drawer. "I don't know if I forgave, but he heard. And that's more than I expected. What will you do next?" "I'll go to work. I'm on duty at the hospital. People still need help. As long as they scream, I'll listen and respond with what I can. If you want to perform, television is waiting. I will tell you. But later, when the necessary silence appears between the words, you have no idea how strong you are. I just didn't let them speak for me. Harris stood up. He shook her hand. He held it for a long time. And when he left, Naomi was left alone. Villages. She closed her eyes. And in this silence, which was once again hers, native, calm, hard-won, she allowed herself to breathe deeply for the first time since that morning, when the gas station seemed like just a stop, and not the starting point of an entire journey. The town of River Pine was shaking with attention it was not accustomed to. Newspapers that usually covered supermarket sales and high school games now carried black and white headlines that included words like violation, uniform, offense, and race. A news camera hung on the City Hall building like an eye watching. The truth. People argued in cafes, whispered on buses, and in schools. Teachers pulled lessons off the blackboard to talk to kids about what it meant to judge by appearances. Naomi knew it. She wasn't looking for the news, but it found her anyway. Through her screen, through her colleagues' voices, through her phone, which had accumulated more than 300 messages. Some were words of encouragement, some were angry advice, and some were short, measured. I'm proud. On the third day after the incident, Colonel Harris invited her into his office. He stood by the window, his hands behind his back. Naomi, an official letter has arrived from Washington. You have support. Of course. That's good, sir. But something else came with it, an invitation to a public appearance. You can refuse. No one is forcing you. Where? University. A panel discussion on racial perception, rights, and service. Participants include 2 senators, a journalist, and you. Naomi sat up and sighed. They want me to scream. They want you to tell the truth. But the truth doesn't always scream. Harris nodded, his gaze softening. I know, Naomi, and that's exactly why you should talk. That evening she came home later than usual. Her apartment was simple. Books, warm light, a couple of photographs of her family. On the wall hung a painting, a lonely road in the steppe, disappearing into the light. She made some tea, sat by the window, turned on the radio. She heard the host talking about her, not calling her by name, but leaving enough hints. When a woman in uniform cannot be accepted as an officer because they see her skin first, then it is not just an accident. It is a mirror of society. Naomi turned off the sound. The room became quiet again. The university hall was spacious, with high ceilings and rows of soft chairs. On the stage was a wooden table, microphones, a flag. The atmosphere was tense. The hall was full. Students, teachers, journalists. Someone held a sign. Uniform is not armor against bias. Someone, I see a person. When the host came out and said, We have Lieutenant Naomi Richards with us today, a wave of applause rose in the room. She came out calmly, in uniform. No jewelry, no makeup, just a straight look and a straight back. She sat down. The microphone was on. The light fell directly on her face. Thank you for coming, the host said. We're here to listen, not to judge, not to correct, to hear. She took the microphone. She was silent for a few seconds. I am not a politician, not an activist. I am a soldier. I take an oath to protect, and I fulfill it. Unconditionally. Silence. That day I was going to training camp. I was in uniform. I carried my ID, badge, rank. But for them, none of that existed. For them, it was just skin and maybe fear. Pause. I didn't scream, because screaming is also a weapon. And I'm used to healing, even those who hurt. There is silence in the hall. Someone wipes their eyes. Someone writes down word for word. They ask me, "Why didn't you resist?" Because I knew that in this fight, it was important not to show strength, but to remain yourself. They were waiting for me to break. I just stood there. That was my strength. She put the microphone down. She didn't speak anymore. The words were already there. Now, silence. And in this silence, the audience stood up, not applauding, not shouting, just standing up. After the performance, a young man approached her. "Lieutenant, can I ask you one question?" "Certainly." "Aren't you afraid that you will now be remembered only for this story? If they remember, let it not be about the fact that they put handcuffs on me, but about how I did not accept them. Not with my heart. Not with my words." He nodded. "I will remember exactly this." The next day, the streets were alive again. People were hurrying, cars were honking, shops were opening. But a photo appeared in the window of a bookstore. A woman in a military uniform standing in front of a microphone. The caption, "Dignity does not require shouting." Naomi walked past. She didn't stop. She just slowed for a moment. And then, evenly, calmly as always, she headed toward the base. There, her patience, her schedule, her daily routine awaited her. But now she knew her voice was there. And it remained, even in the silence. Spring did not come suddenly to River Pine. It came slowly, as if cautiously, leaving a fine dusting of pollen on the hoods of cars in the morning and reflecting in puddles where snow had lain yesterday. The wind became softer, no longer scorching, but touching like a palm. People began to stand longer at the traffic lights, as if waiting for something more than just the green light. Everything around seemed to be holding its breath, not in alarm, but in respect for something important that was happening in their city, not in the town hall or in the newspapers, but in their hearts. Naomi walked down the alley. No uniform. A simple dark shirt, trousers, and coat. Her hair was pulled back, her face calm. A notebook in her hand. She had been invited to give a lecture at the city school. Not as a soldier, not as a heroine, but as a woman who hadn't hung her head when it was easiest. "Are you ready?" the teacher asked, meeting her at the entrance. "Yes, I'll just talk." Without a microphone. There were about 100 students in the assembly hall. Different faces, different looks. Some were smiling, some were looking warily, some were just waiting for the end of the lesson. She stood in front of them. She was silent for a few seconds. "My name is Naomi Richards. I'm in the military. Medical. I didn't come here to tell you how to be strong. I'm here to tell you that you already are strong. It's just that not everyone knows it." One boy raised his hand. "Is it true that you were arrested simply because you were black?" Naomi looked at him, calmly, not with resentment, with understanding. "It is true that I was not seen. Not as a soldier, not as a person, just as a color. And color is not an act. It is not a choice. It is just a part of the skin. But it cannot be the whole truth." "Did you cry afterwards?" "No, I was angry. But I didn't cry, because I leave tears for those I lose. But I didn't lose myself. I stayed." The boy nodded. His eyes never looked away again. He was listening. Really. "Then why didn't you scream?" Naomi took a step forward. "Because they were expecting it. Because screaming is a reaction. And I wanted to give an answer. And an answer is always a choice. I chose silence, But it was not a weak silence. It was firm. It stood still. And it was heard. After the meeting, a girl came up to her, fragile, with a braid and freckles. In her hands, a book with bookmarks. Can? Certainly. I wanted to say that I was once told that I was not from here. I kept quiet then. Then I thought for a long time about what I should have answered. But now I understand that my silence was right. Because I remained myself. Thank you for saying that. Naomi leaned in, smiled. Thank you for listening. A week later, a letter arrived. An envelope without stamps. Just a name, written in a neat but forceful hand. She opened it, read it. Lieutenant Richards, it was my decision. No one pressured me. No one instructed me. I chose to say that you were suspicious. I didn't know you. I didn't hear you. I just watched. And that was my mistake. I'm quitting. Not because I was forced. Because I don't deserve the uniform if I can't see the man behind it. Hopefully, one day, I'll learn. Jake Collins. Naomi put the letter in the mailbox. Not because she forgave, because she understood. Everyone has their own path. And if a person has gone, you have to let him go. Everything was going on as usual at the base. The hospital, the training, the shifts. Shifts that started at 6 in the morning and conversations that ended after midnight. But Naomi was no longer just a shadow in the hallway. People listened to her. They noticed her, not out of fear, but out of respect. One day the captain, passing by, said, "Lieutenant, would you like to conduct training for new recruits?" "About what?" "About how not to lose your voice in silence." She smiled. "I will think." When the city had calmed down again and the news feeds were filled with other stories, Naomi returned to that same gas station one evening. Not out of anger, not to reminisce, but to close the circle. She went into the store, bought water, the same one, same button, same rustle of the bottle, walked out. There was a woman standing in the parking lot. "It's you, right?" "Yes." "I was there then, filming. I was afraid. But you didn't flinch. It was just a choice. You have changed something. I am now speaking when I was silent before." Naomi nodded. "I kept silent so that you would start talking." She left without looking back. And that evening, sitting by the window with a cup of tea, Naomi looked at the city. At the light in the windows, at the slow cars, at the trees that were now blooming. She no longer searched for words, because she knew she had already said the most important thing. Without shouting, no slogans, just standing still and remaining.